So Thierry Chignon is senior partner with Mérieux Development. Probably, again, I don't need to introduce Mérieux Development here. So he has more than 25 years of experience in quality assurance, regulatory affairs, clinical trials, with a particular focus on the medical device sector, which is very appropriate here today. During his career, he worked on business development strategies for innovative products and also worked, and this is very interesting, for 5 years as an expert of the Commission of the European Union drafting guidelines and regulations for medical devices. And I say this is very interesting because we haven't talked about this much, but this whole regulatory side of thing is extremely important for this field. So maybe we'll address a little bit of that during the Q&A, and it sounds like perhaps you might be able to help us on that front. So, but in the meantime, if you can tell us a little bit about your activity with Mérieux Development, because I think it's going to be very appropriate here, again, in the scheme of sort of investments and business models with that thematic in mind. But perhaps maybe you can introduce first what Mérieux Development is and then bring into the context of digital health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Yeah, Mérieux Development is the investment vehicle of Institut Mérieux. We act as a family office. Family office means, to make it short, long-term and very flexible in the approach, but at the same time, we are within Institut Mérieux, which is actually an industrial holding, which means that the group in itself, which is more than 15,000 employees, including BioVision, with an employee that you've just heard before, is present worldwide and having offices in several countries, being able to directly distribute or sell their product in more than 150 countries. The reason why I'm mentioning that is that we're having a very different profile as compared to other private equity guys, in the sense that we do want our portfolio company to benefit from this unique opportunity to go abroad or to become international. That's a very important point. Of course, we're having a clear focus on health, as all the Institut Mérieux companies, having both venture type of investment, i.e. early stage companies, on growth equity investment. And what we mean by growth equity means profitable companies. We are basically managing 220 million euros, which are coming mainly in the majority from the Mérieux family, but also from the Frère family. Frère family is a Belgian family, and Desmarais family, which is a French-Canadian family. Our objective is to invest, of course, in the healthcare segment, and there is one of great interest, which is digital health. But we're investing in product and services, and for example, we had an investment with the Lavorel Medicare company, which is involved in intensive home care services. What we've said earlier on, keeping patients out of the hospital as much as we can. In 2 words, I've been also personally involved, I can take just these 2 examples, in some technologies or companies involved with the same type of technology as digital health. One of them, Quantify Self technology or devices, and the company is named Visiomed, which happened to be a French-listed Alternext company. Initially, they were providing some, if I would say, more basic devices, such as a glucose, blood pressure, temperature, pulse oximeters device to monitor patient. And the company has been one of the first one to move to a fully integrated system under digital connected devices, if I may say. And you may have seen that it's now called Be Well Connect. And there are 2 interesting points, maybe. The first one is that it can work without a smartphone. And when you think about it, it may sound a little bizarre, but keep in mind that a lot of those patients currently that need this type of monitoring at home are not that keen with a smartphone. So, very important one. Of course, you've got the early adopter, the geeks, that cannot work without a smartphone, but you've got the other extreme, maybe sometime, not all of them, under the silver economy that need some system without any of these superb tools. That's the first difference. And the second one, which is also pretty interesting because they receive a prize as the last Vegas show, is because with all the information coming from these different devices, they start with an app, little apps that you can have wherever you want. And if you respond to several questions, it can tell you if you're in the green zone, in the orange zone, or the red zone. And in that case, you will need to call a doctor. And of course, they've got the call-in center in order to ensure that a physician will reply. So this is one example of how a company moved to some existing healthcare product, not connected, into now highly connected product. Second example, far different service area, where I used also to be a shareholder and also administrator, is, and I have to mention it because we're in Lyon, the company is named MAPI, M-A-P-I, not the other one that you may use to find your way. It happened to be French. It's a CRO, contract research organization, and it's involved with late phase data. Late phase data, or other people call it real world evidence, are the information you gather on drugs or medical devices once the product is authorized, is approved, and in order to demonstrate in real world evidence how it will actually work, how it will be safe, efficient at this stage. You need a lot of data. In order to do that, either you collect the data through some actual trials, which is one way. The other way, of course, would be to get closer to some strong database, patient base, where you can have the information. And no need to say that already 3 years ago, we started discussing with organizations such as Patient Like Me, or Carinity, if I want to mention a French one, in order to see how to work on those databases. These were the two examples I wanted to provide. What I did not mention, maybe in terms of venture, in our venture activities, that we're receiving an average of, not an average, a little more last year, of 300 company opportunities for investment. And I can say, roughly speaking, we've got a good 20% that are linked to digital health. When you think about it, a year ago, it was half less. So it's dramatically improving in terms of numbers. Digital health, you've heard a little earlier, and it's a colleague from the same organization mentioning that it's more an evolution than a revolution. I personally think it's a revolution, but he's got a bias because in the IVD sector, they're highly in this area for several years. But if you look at it on a global point of view, I mean, including healthcare product, it's an actual revolution. We are seeing a lot of, we are receiving a lot of opportunities. It started a lot in the area of the wellness, Fitbit-like, which has been mentioned in the introduction. And that was good for early adopters. And now we are actually moving to, I'm not sure if I'm going to say actual, but clearly healthcare products in order to improve patient life or to treat a disease. And that's a major difference. I've got a big question each time I'm receiving one of those dossiers, is what's the actual business model? How is it going to work? Does it make sense? Yes, always. Always make a lot of sense. Always improve the situation for the patient, for the system. But this is not sufficient. We are living, and when we're investing into a healthcare company, we're living in a very controlled, managed environment, as you know, which is patients cannot do whatever they want because it's under some type of medical prescription, and patients are used also to get most, if not all, I'm a little Frenchly biased, but most, if not all, being reimbursed. So it's nice, it's always nice. How is it going to work? Who is going to pay for it? Are we able to convince the patient to acquire the technology in a sufficient large population so that it's self-sustainable business? Or do we actually need the payers in final to jump on it in order to become relevant? These are some key questions, and no need to say that it's very difficult to have a clear understanding of how is the entrepreneur going to make it happen, or are we sure he does have a perfect view on how to match the gap in order to reach this situation? There is another one which has also been mentioned, which is an important one, is how is it going to be incorporated in the existing healthcare systems? And as you know, our healthcare systems worldwide are very different. So it may be a perfect match, and I just see an example recently in Germany, which is a pretty large country, but unfortunately it did not work at all in France, and that was for me a clear benchmark. I don't know if I've got 5 more minutes. Oh no, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes?
Yes.
About big data, very quickly. Big data for me is very important because that will be leading to something which is a must in the future, which is moving to personalized medicine, improving diagnostic, optimizing treatment, having some adequate monitoring. But of course, we are getting a new kind of newcomers, which are the GAFA. And the GAFA are going to capture most, if not all, of this big data. That will force the industry, and we can further exchange on that, on the traditional is a bad wording, the medical industry to move and to find solution for their added value. And we are back to the added value. And I think it was a very good example provided by Alain, again, just because I know this one pretty well, which was applied math, how we move from actual data into this expertise in order to render this data efficient and providing some added value. So my key question, and I will stop with that, let's move from a nice-to-have technology to a must-have technology with some clear added value, and that will be perfect.